I wanted to host this webinar basically just to go over pretty much the importance of rules in your trading overall. So as you guys may know or may not know, I've been trading full time now for 3.5 years, going on 4 years. And in those 4 years, I have broken every rule in the book pretty much that I have made for myself. And we'll kind of get into that, like how I make rules and how I go about all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, creating rules in your trading is so important. So I wanted to put together this webinar to kind of go over it because it's like such an important part of your trading that people tend to neglect and look over. And like, with social media, there's just so much going on with just setups and this and that. But the reality is, over time, the more you break your rules, the harder it is to keep money. So like I said, because I've been trading full time for 4 years, like I can attest to this. There's been so many days where I've just given back tons of money. So I wanted to put together this webinar to kind of go into it. So let's do it. So the strength of rules in your trading, a webinar on how and why we implement rules for our trading. So let's start it off. So first of all, treat trading as your own business. Okay, you probably have heard this before where people talk about like, yeah, like, your trading is your business, it's your own business. But in reality, like it's your own business. It's a long-term game. Trading is a long-term game. You need to think in months and years, not in days. So this kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier, how you you can make money, but if you are giving it back all the time, like that's the importance of all these rules. Like it is so easy to get caught up in a single day. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone on tilt, had FOMO, try to make money back in the same day, and just like it is the worst thing because you lose sight of like how many more trades you're going to take, how many, how long you're going to be doing this into the future. It's like it's easy to get sucked into like the day and just think only about that day. It's like I need to make money today. I need to do this today. But in reality, it's like you need to think in months and years and not days. So when it comes to a business thinks in terms of years and decades, not days. Example, a restaurant. So I worked in the restaurant industry a lot of my life. And generally, when an owner signs a lease for a restaurant, they're 10-year leases. Like it's not something where you're just like, okay, we'll rent out this place for a year or two. Like, no, it's a 10-year lease. It's a commitment. So a business is thinking long term. They're thinking of all the years ahead. They're not thinking of just like the day. So on that note, a business has rules for like profit margins, employee etiquette, comping food in order to protect itself long term. So again, the whole idea is a business has rules also. It's just a different type of rules. It's like, so if in a restaurant, for example, they have to sell food at a certain markup in order to make money, profit margins on that food. Employees have to like maybe dress a certain way and not, be disrespectful or like do certain things. Like you can't just comp on give away your food. You're not going to make money. Like they do things long term to protect itself. And there's a reason why they do this. It's because they're creating rules in place for their business. And the big point, like I said, of all this is a business thinks long term of how to stay profitable, grow, and protect itself. And as you can already tell, this is going to be tying into rules. It's like you need to think long term in your trading in order to be profitable, in order to grow, and in order to protect yourself. And businesses take losses, but they usually account for it. And so another example, when it comes to restaurant, food waste, slippage, it's like if you're pouring beers and you change a keg, some of the keg dumps down the drain because you have runoff, all that type of stuff. Food goes to waste because orders get messed up. It's like they account for all these little things here and there and they take little losses, but in the long term of things, they're thinking about like, okay, like that's going to happen. So same idea with your trading, like, you're going to take losses. It's just a part of the game. There's no substitute for it. Like you're going to take losses, but the more you have rules in place, it's going to hopefully minimize those losses and protect you. So remember, as a trader, your trading is a business and it is yours. So again, it's like, think about like this is your baby. This is what you're trying to do, whatever your strategy is, whatever your whole idea of how you are creating success around trading is, like it's your business and never forget that. Again, you need to think the same long-term mindset as since it is a business, it has guidelines and safeguards and you need to keep it running strong long term. So all of that, like I said, I you hear this a lot in social media and just in general. People always say like, "Oh, treat trading like a business," but when you do treat it like a business, you need to think of it long term. That's the whole point, is it's long term, long term, long term. I know if you guys follow SMB Capital at all, Mike Bellafiore talks about this. He had like a little reel where he's talking about how he's like, let's say he's like, you're going to be trading for 10 years, let's say. He's like, out of those 10 years, 2 of those years are going to be really difficult, where you might lose money overall. He's like, I think he says like 3 years will be like okay, and then like 3 years will be awesome, and then 2 years will be like outstanding. He's like, but the whole idea is like, as long as you can keep your seat at that job for at least those 2 years when the things are really, really tough, he's like, you can kind of account for all the other years to make up for it. So, they're thinking long term. They're thinking in 10 years of being a trader, but you guys know how it is. Every trader wants to get rich overnight. Every trader wants to become a 6-figure trader within the first year and make all this money and do this and do that. But that's just not the reality of it. So treat trading like a business. Next, why do we need rules? So rules create long-term safety and structure behind your trading. So they allow you to focus on process, which in the long term leads to gains and minimize losses. So the whole point of creating safety is you got to think of rules as guardrails. And, like let's say you're driving on a cliff, like those guardrails are there to protect you when you're driving up a mountain. Like they're not there just randomly out of nowhere. And the same idea is with your rules. Like your rules are there to protect you when your mind goes astray, when your mind is like not there fully in that day, like when your amygdala takes over, when you're not fully thinking. Because you guys, I'm sure, know how it is. It's like you get sucked into this vortex of this, like these crazy emotions where like all of a sudden you are just, you can't think, can't think accordingly. And when you get sucked into all these emotions, like it's like I said, it's so hard to forget the long-term point of view. It's like, we're looking in 10 years for this career. It's like, at least it's like, so your rules are really guide rails, and we're humans and we have emotions. No matter what you hear, it's nearly impossible to remove 100% of your emotions from trading. And you always hear this too. People are like, oh, you got to trade like a robot. You got to be a robot. You can't have any emotions. But it's like, dude, we're fucking human. Like we're going to have emotions. It's how we are as people. So like no matter what anyone says, like you're going to have emotions, but having rules help protect you when those emotions get too strong and try to take over. So like the biggest one is like going on tilt. I'm sure all of you guys have gone on tilt before. And this term comes from poker, where you get all frustrated because you do something and then you like accidentally slip or fuck up. But like the whole point is, those rules help you so your tilt doesn't continue to go on tilt. And like you have a max loss. Like that's another great one. I think max loss is probably the biggest rule I'm going to go over today, like and cover when I kind of get into hard rules and soft rules a little bit later. But like having a max loss protects you. Again, we're thinking about the long term here. This is a 10-year plan, 10-year goals, and these rules help you stay on that 10-year path. So stay focused with the rules, because going on tilt obviously is one of the biggest reasons we need rules, because you can blow up so much of your shit in one day and it feels awful. Following rules helps us build discipline, which in turn protects us long term. So again, you always hear, I hate using cliche terms in the industry, like, oh, you need to be a disciplined trader, like you gotta follow your process. But like it is really true, but it's like building discipline can come from different aspects of life. So it's like for me, like I've been powerlifting for over 7 years, lifting weights consecutively almost every day for like 12 years, 13 years of my life. And so that part of my discipline is there, but it's crazy because it's still really hard for that part of my life to transfer over to trading. And I try my best to do it. And what I notice is the more I follow my rules, no matter what, day in and day out, the more that discipline actually does build. It's like a muscle, it's like when you follow your rules. And like a great example is like I had this rule where I need to sit out the first 5 minutes of the open. And like I still have that rule like right now to this day. And it took me so long to master that, because there was a time in the market, like in 2021, where everything was ripping right off the open and you could take these opening drive setups and they would work great. Like they would work fantastic. But it got to the point where you don't really have that good a risk near the open like that. At least I didn't. And it got to the point where I started getting hurt more often taking those opening drive trades. And I would just kind of figure it out in all of my trading and in my review. I was like, if I just sit out these 5 minutes, I can avoid taking these big losses and being hurt. So it's like, I need to implement this rule. But let me tell you, it was really hard to follow that because I was so used to taking a trade in the first 5 minutes. So literally, it was like a thing where like I had to go through a lot of processes to make that work. And I'll get into that in a little bit of how I did that. But, like once you start following that, like just one rule, it helps build the discipline, which, like I said, in turn protects us long term. So getting in the habit of breaking rules leads to long-term stagnance and even potential slow drawdown. I can attest to this because the first pretty much 2 years of my trading were literally a fucking roller coaster of just ups and downs. And it's a lot of the same story for a lot of people, where it's like, you lose some money, you make a little bit of money, you make a little bit of more money, you get hot and overconfident, you give it all back in like a day or two. And then it's like a constant cycle of going through that. And then slowly but surely, you just keep giving back too much, and it's a slow drawdown over time. And it really just stems from breaking these rules. It's like breaking that max loss rule, breaking whatever like type of rules you have. And over time, it's like it feels like shit because you're stagnant. You're not really making much progress. And so getting in the habit of breaking rules just leads to this awful stagnance. Let's go next. So, oops. Okay, so when do we have to follow our rules? Basically 100% of the time, 99.9% of the time, especially in those in those first few years of developing your system and your edge. So kind of like I just talked about, in the first couple of years, you're really not going to know what your edge is. You're not going to really know what you're looking for. And if you have those rules in the beginning, those foundations, it's going to help build those guardrails more than anything. And really the only time it's quote unquote acceptable to break rules is when you have tons of data backing up your consistency and discipline over so many years that you can prove and see opportunity to break a rule. But even then, you'll likely have so much process in your system that you won't even want to break the rule after all the data has just backed it all up. So really when it comes down to it, it's never really called for to break your rules. And I highlighted this next part in red because the biggest issue behind breaking rules is the market can reward you for bad behavior. So you guys have probably done this tons of times. I've done it tons of times in my trading career. Oh, I'll move my stop up just a little bit. Okay, it reversed. Oh, wow. Okay, good. Then you go to do that again the next time and it doesn't happen. Or you get in a scalp position and then all of a sudden it goes past you and you freeze and you're like, okay, well, maybe the market will turn around, and the market does turn around. And then, later when that scenario comes up again, you want to do the same thing again, and maybe it rewards you again. And so now it's building this awful habit of like, okay, well, last time this worked, it should be okay. Last time this worked, it should be okay. And then all of a sudden, the next time it doesn't work, you get smoked, absolutely smoked. And, you lose a shit ton of money, you feel like shit. And the worst part is that all stemmed from you breaking that initial rule, because the market can reward you for bad behavior. The market rewards tons of people out there for doing stupid shit. Look at Wall Street Bets. That's a whole forum dedicated to dumbasses that have no risk management and no idea how to actually trade, and they're just gambling. And in the long term, pretty much all of those guys lose money because they do not have rules. They do not have processes behind those rules. And basically what it does is in long term, it leads to these negative habit pattern loops. And like I said earlier, it's just this constant negative reinforcement of or actually it's like a positive reinforcement of doing the negative thing. And it just always that's going to lead to the stagnance. That's going to lead to you doing the wrong things over and over and over. And, you're going to have that big day where you just blow up a bunch of shit, and it's going to feel so awful, and you're going to give back months of progress, and it's just not worth it. So for the majority, the discipline muscle we build from following our rules over a long period of time consistently is what leads to long-term growth for your trading business. So it's really just consistency over time. And kind of like I said, like that 5-minute rule I was talking about earlier, it's something where you do it so consistently that it just becomes second nature. So like now for me, like sitting out the first 5 minutes of the open, I've gotten to the point where I feel like a monk now in the first 5 minutes, and it's great because I see there's times all the time where I see an opening drive rip of a setup I like. And, before I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to get in. I need to get in. And like now I'm just like, well, I have to wait 5 minutes. It's a non-negotiable. I have to look for a pullback or look for some other opportunity. But like, especially because I trade options and I trade a lot of gap setups. So it's like if something is gapping and the spreads are really big on the options, that's how I got smoked a lot initially on trading in those first 5 minutes, is because the spreads are super wide on the options. They haven't settled yet. It's an individual name with maybe lower liquidity. And, like I get in, and those times I would get in and get lucky, I make a lot of money real quick. But when I don't get lucky, it's like, boom, in 1 minute, I'm down 60%. And I'm like, holy shit. So it's like, that was another safety thing where, just over and over, I got hurt so many times. I was like, I just need to wait the full 5 minutes. So doing this consistently, like now it's pretty easy. It just like really allows me over time to, build that discipline. And it's just a consistency thing. So next, how do we create and set rules? So this will be a good educational part for you guys. Creating rules comes from first observation of our worst habits and current market conditions, which do not favor your trading business. Example, trading the open the first 5 minutes, just like I talked about. So observation comes from a lot of documenting. So it's like, we're not going to be able to observe what we do bad unless we document. And I'm sure you guys can even do this yourself, where like most of the time off the top of your head, what you shouldn't be doing. It's like, but if you start documenting stuff in the trading session, you could see patterns and like patterns of your behavior, not like in the market, like patterns of what you are doing as a person, because all these rules are pretty much going to stem from how you are responding. Don't forget, you're the one clicking the buttons. Like, it's like, no one is giving you money. No one is taking your money. You are in charge of pressing the buttons in extracting money from the market or giving money to the market. So as we can observe what we do over time, we can really see what bad behaviors we have. So I have right here, I said, use a notepad method. So in front of me every single day, this is something I do. I just have a notepad, and literally like in the moment, if I do something dumb or like I'm feeling off, like I just jot it down real quick right then and there. It's like, it can be something where it's like a little comment, or like, oh, I feel really edgy today. Like, oh, market ripped without me. I feel a lot of FOMO. It can be other little things too. Like I put like trust your playbook setup, like, like holding your levels, like pay attention to it. I even put today, I was like, you're switching focus too much at the open. You need to hone in on something a little bit better and not be so jumpy. So it's like little things like that is kind of observing stuff of like your behavior, how you're thinking. I kind of noticed I was pretty tired today too. So like little stuff like that, I'd write down. So the notepad method is really great. It's actually something where, it's just a good way to observe yourself in the moment, because when you go to do your review later in the day, you often kind of forget these little nuanced things. But if you can kind of just look at little notes you've taken in the moment in the day, you kind of observe that behavior a bit more. And you're like, huh, okay, like, maybe I need to slow down a bit here or there, because I noticed that yesterday. So going next into types of rules, I have what's called hard rules and soft rules. So hard rules usually are strict risk management based rules. Think long-term macro protection on this stuff. This is going to be anything from like a max loss rule, a sizing rule. Like I said, non-negotiables. Like these are the foundations of your trading. So it's like, if your max loss, like let's say like you have a max loss rule of $200 a day. It's like, I can't lose more than $200 a day. It's like, okay, well, like if you hit that number, that has to be a non-negotiable in your trading, where over time you have to respect that and build that muscle of like, I hit my max loss, I have to shut it down for the day. Because let me tell you, I have dug my hole so many times, and it is the worst thing ever. And it's the worst feeling. I'll give you guys a nice statistic. It's actually not nice. I fucking hate this statistic, but I did it last year because I document everything. I journal everything. Last year, I broke my max loss rule so many times that I added up every day that I went over my max loss, and it was close to like $50,000 of money that I gave back to the market just from breaking that one rule. So it's like, if I would have followed that one rule, I would have made an extra 50K, which is like crazy to think about. It's like, holy shit, this one rule over time adds up that much. And like I said, again, this is like thinking long-term, big picture, because in the moment, all those days when I broke the max loss rule, it's something where like I hit the max loss maybe in my first trade or like my second trade. I'm like, well, or like I remember I've had times where I've had really good weeks and I hit my max loss real quick and I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I've been able to make that back really easy and like double that, triple that. Like I take one more trade. Okay, I'll take one more trade. And then before you know it, like you're down $3,000 and you're like, holy shit, this sucks. So these are non-negotiable stuff. Sizing rules, another one, it's size obviously is a subject where you can go into it in detail about the type of setup, what deserves size, all this type of stuff. But like especially in like the foundational early parts, it's like this is a non-negotiable. Like you have a strict size that you need to respect. And the more you go over that size and break that, the more prone you are just to having a big loss. And it's like, like if you don't know your full edge, where you have edge, and think about the risk behind it, it's like you need to stick to these stuff. Like this, like I said, these are hard rules, non-negotiables, foundations of your trading. So next up is soft rules. And these are more like behavior-based stuff where we've learned from observation. This comes from the notepad method, like I talked about. So example could be time of the day. So it's like, for me personally, I don't have edge really trading past 9 o'clock, which is 12 p.m. for Eastern Standard Time. And like, I know, like, if it's the middle of the day and I want to take a trade, the odds are just against me. Like, it's like, yeah, maybe it can work here and there, but having a rule that like, I don't trade after 9 a.m., like maybe between 9 a.m. and power hour specifically, it just saves me so much headache. It's like I don't do that well in slower periods. And it's just something where, like it's just not worth it. So it's like that's a soft rule that kind of I noticed early in my career. I don't really have that as a rule anymore because I'm just pretty good at it now. It's like I don't want to sit here during the middle of the day for 3 hours and look at a stock move like a quarter of an ATR. Like it's not worth it to me. So, and then like another example is number of trades. So this is actually a rule that I still currently have personally because it is something where, can you guys still hear me? My internet kind of just bugged out. Cool, perfect. So number of trades. This is actually a rule I still currently have. And this really comes down to over trading. So over trading is another issue that I've had a lot in my personal trading career, trading development. And it's just like the feeling of getting hot, giving back too much money. And so now I have like a strict rule of taking a max of 3 trades per day. And the more I respect that, the more I notice like more money I keep over time, because I'm just too prone to giving back money where it's like I hit my daily goal or hit like above it. And then all of a sudden I want to take one more. And then it doesn't, maybe it doesn't work. And then, you give back some money and like, you're like, well, I want to get back to where I was. And then you start getting frustrated. Then you're prone to going on tilt. So again, this is a soft rule. Some people, maybe this doesn't apply to them. That maybe this is something where you're okay with taking a lot of trades because you're just very, very disciplined in how you can take your stops really quick or like, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the whole point of creating and setting rules is observe your behaviors, do it through observation. This comes from your journaling, this comes from intraday, kind of seeing how you feel, jotting little things down on the notepad, and then setting those hard and soft rules. It's like, what is a macro, like non-negotiable size rule, max loss rule, stuff like that, and then soft rules through observation. Next. Okay, so now we have some rules in place. What are some processes we can implement to make sure we follow them? So use the checkbox method. So the checkbox method is something that I kind of came up with when I was really struggling with my rules. And the whole idea behind the checkbox method is very simple. You physically write out your rules on a piece of paper and you laminate it. And when you do this, every day you go through your process of trading, you check off the rules as you complete them. And I know it's like until the day ends, sometimes you can't fully do this because it's like number of trades or whatever. But like for me, for example, like my first rule is don't trade the first 5 minutes. So it's like I create that process of I wait 5 minutes, I take an expo marker, because I also got like the sheet laminated, and I check the box off of me following that first rule. And that creates structure and process in the rule following. And like literally that allows me to to begin that process of doing it day in and day out. And it just makes it easier because I'm like, okay, I check a box. What's the next box? And like for me, the next box will be like size. And so it's like, okay, I'm about to get in a trade. Like make sure I don't put too much risk on it. Like, what is my size? Like, okay, I followed that. Check it off. Next one for me would be like the 3 trades a day. So I literally have 3 little like sub boxes under that. After I take a trade and I'm done with it, I mark off that box. And then my last rule that I have personally is like the max loss rule. So it's like, finish the day and I respect my max loss, check off the box. So again, like this is like an actual like tangible way you can go about trying to implement these processes of following these rules. And again, it's like, physically print out a piece of paper, laminate it, the day goes on, check it off with an expo marker. I also have a client, he likes to do it on like a document on his computer. So if you prefer to do that, you can. However, like the whole point is to do it daily. It's like you need to build this habit in the process of doing it, because like anyone can have rules like next to them on their desk, but like if you're not actually paying attention to it and doing some sort of process that like reinforces you doing the right thing, it's not really going to help you over time. So track your days as you follow them. So in my journal process, I simply note if I followed all my rules or not as well. So it's like, it'll have like, on TraderView, I have like a little journal box, and then like I have like a pre-made template where it has all my rules every day. And it'll be a question like, did you not trade the first 5 minutes? And I'll put a little checkbox in it. So it's like when I do my weekly review at the end of the week, I can see how many days I broke my rules, or like, and then like what led to that, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the whole point is track your days of following your processes. So it's like, if you want to do this in your journal, you can as well. Again, these are just like some processes and ideas that you can use in order to implement your rules and follow them. So remember, we're trying to create process behind following the rules and ingrain the importance of them. The more you start to see positive reinforcement from following your rules, the easier they become to follow and respect. Example, fire is hot. We learn not to touch it over time to not get burned. It's like, there's a red light, you learn not to run it, otherwise you can get fucking hit by the car. It's like the hard part about that, again, is, I can't reiterate this enough, is the market will reward you for bad behavior. So like this is a long-term game. It's over time processes, following these rules day in and day out, not only will help build you as a better trader, make you more money, have you keep more money, but it's going to build you as a person too. It's going to make you more of a disciplined person in other parts of your life. I know Chan's in the room right now. Chan's been trading for, God, I think 7 years, something like that. And he can attest to this, that, you learn more about yourself becoming a trader than like pretty much anything else in the world. It's like you learn more about how you think, how you act, and it is one of the most humbling experiences as you go through this journey of growth, because like being able to do stuff like this where you create rules, like, again, this is your business. It's like creating all this structure and this foundation. It's like no one tells you to do this. It's like, you have to figure out what your rules are. You have to figure out the structure behind them. You have to create them as a person. So again, we're trying to create processes behind it. Final thoughts. Rules can change over time based on performance, markets, and observation. A big one being markets. So, I kind of talked about this earlier. Example, opening drives work well in raging bull markets. So, I would say a lot of macro rules should say similar. Obviously, as you grow as a trader, like sizing and stuff, that's going to change. It's like as you become better, your risk can become greater. You can size up a bit, so that rule is going to change. Your max loss can change too, because maybe your daily goal or how much money you're making is changing. So it's like, but that's over time based on your performance. So when you're doing really well and you're seeing that, you can alter these rules. And then like even for the soft rules, it's like, we can learn to adapt our soft rules with markets over time. Like even a good example could be during earnings season, for example. Like I personally have a lot of edge. I trade a lot of like gap names and like in individual names that have catalysts during earnings season. But when it's not earnings season, I don't have as much of an edge in those individual names. So I need to kind of shift my playbook and my ideas into trading SPY more and trading the Qs more, and remind myself to like maybe size down, because it's like not my super strong point. But hard rules can change when we see consistent growth size, like I said, consistency and risk. But for the most part, they need to be the backbone of our trading business. So pretty much that wraps it up. I know that was kind of a mouthful and I just went on for a bit, but hopefully that helped, guys. I'm going to do like a little Q&A right now just with the few of you in here, and you can kind of just ask me anything. Since just a few of you, I think I'll just unmute everyone, and as long as you guys aren't super loud, or like if you want to ask a question, let me know in the chat, and we'll just do this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll answer accordingly. So just hit me in the chat right now if you have any questions about any of this. Then lastly, right here, feel free to tag me in your story. I really appreciate all this. So hell yeah, the checkbox method. Yeah, it works pretty well. Like like I said, it's very process oriented, but the more you do that every day, like Drew, I've talked to you about your trading personally. Like you know how it goes. So it's using any processes you can to build structure. It just helps so much. Yeah, it definitely keeps you super honest. Like, dude, it's tangible. It's like when you go over your journal at the end of the week or like the end of the day and you go to check those boxes, like I do it all the time, dude. I still have, and like I said, I'm not perfect. It's like I fuck up all the time still, where I break one rule or something. I'm like, I shouldn't have taken that fourth trade, or like I sized a little bit too heavy there. And it's like that's just part of it. I find it a bit difficult to manage multiple trades at the same time. Any tips on that? So yeah, you can create a rule. I have this sometimes, like, where you can create a rule just to not be in more than one trade at a time. And especially depending on how you trade, you got to remember. So here's a good piece of advice. When you're trading, I have a rule where I only do one at a time. Okay. Yeah. So when you're trading, you got to remember this is a mental sport. Like, it is exhausting. Number one, all the decisions you have to make as a trader based on all the information that you are gathering, it's literally like paralysis by analysis, because there's just so much going on between the tape, the markets, news, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a lot of brain power. So it's like if you're having trouble managing multiple trades at the same time, honestly, man, just try to only take one trade at a time. Because I have this too, where I was in 2 trades today at once, and I was like, I don't like it. Like, I don't feel comfortable with it personally. There's sometimes when it works and sometimes when it doesn't. But, like, overall, if you can kind of just focus your attention on one trade at a time and try to get rid of that FOMO factor, because a lot of times that's what it is, right? You want to be in multiple trades because you want to catch the whole boat. You want to get the whole boat moving. You want to catch everything that's moving at the same time and make all this money. But that's just really FOMO at the end of the day. It's like, as you grow as a trader, you just want to think about where you have edge, and you only really need to take one trade a day, hit your daily goal, and do that over and over and over. I know that's easier said than done, but like, it's probably a FOMO thing, honestly, if you find it a bit like difficult to manage multiple trades at the same time, because that just means like you shouldn't be in multiple trades at the same time. Like, try to just focus on taking one trade at a time and really fight it, because like I said, the more you get burned, the easier it does become to be like, fuck that, I don't want to do that again. Like, last time that was too much stress, or like I thought about this too much, that was too tough. So that's kind of my advice for that, is just try to only focus on one trade at a time, no matter how much you want to take that second trade. Like, oh, this is ripping, I have to be in it. Think about like the opposite. It's like, this is always also a good kind of strategy idea, is like, a lot of really good traders think about only the downside. They don't really think about the upside. Obviously, you want to think about how much money you're making, but like, you want to focus on your risk. Like, where are you going to be wrong? And often when you're in 2 trades at once, like, because let's say you jump into that second one, it's probably a lot of FOMO, because like I said, you want to catch that boat that's moving, but what if both the boats sink at the same time and you weren't thinking about where you're going to get out? Now your loss is doubled or tripled of what you thought, and it's just a lot. So yeah, Drew said he has a rule where he only does one trade at a time. That's a good rule. Multiple trades so stressful, mentally draining. 100% came in. Do you set profit goals for each day, much like a max loss? Is that part of your rules in any way? And if so, how do you balance hitting that goal versus pushing aggression in a healthy way to keep growing? God, Chandler, of course, hitting me with the good questions. So I do set profit goals for each day, much like a max loss. And I do have that in part of my rules. So it's like if I hit my daily goal in my first or second trade of the day, I try to just shut it down. Like literally, like if I hit it in the first or second, I want to just fully shut it down for the day and lock it in because I'm just too prone to giving money back. Because also like my daily goal, like there's days where I can hit double or triple it like no problem because it's not like exponential daily growth. Like it's not like a huge amount of money still to me, but um yeah, it's like when that does happen, um how I balance hitting that goal versus pushing aggression in a healthy way to keep growing, I would say, especially from a like a late like a recent point of view, is just experience over playbooking over time, like seeing where I have edge. Like Chandler, I'm sure you know this, like you know when you have edge in a setup, you know what you're looking for. And like for me, like I said, my like these like earnings names and like gap setups are kind of a lot of my edge. And just from playbooking and documenting over time, when I see it, I'm like, okay, I need to push it on this. I can push my size a little bit on this, but it's like kind of like a sweet spot where I don't want to get too aggressive with the size because the size rule is more of like it's a safety mechanism. But again, like the more you learn how good a setup actually is for you, like what makes sense to you, I think that's kind of when you can push the size a little bit more. But it's again, it's this art of where you don't want to push it too hard. You know, you want to find the balance between like, okay, maybe I'm going to go like 1.2x my size or 1.5x my size. It's like I'll never really go like I'm going double full size on this. It's like it's just that's still just like a whole nother mental barrier for me. So like pushing aggression on those days, I'd say it's hard. Like it's still a hard thing for me personally. That's why the daily goal is a good thing because like if you can hit it, you could shut it down. And remember, we're just trying to trade to live in like another day. You know, I'm sure you probably have better advice on this than I do because you have so much more experience than I do. But you know, I think that's the whole point of a daily goal in general is to kind of just have that. You're like, okay, I hit it. I turn off the computer. I'm done. I need to walk away. I need to, you know, like lock it in, be done, go on from there. Something used to happen to me with multiple trades. One of them will be a loser and the other one is winning. So it gets easier to let the loser run because the winner is doing so well. Yeah, for sure. You know, it's like it's really easy to do that because it's like, oh well, you know, if this one works out, then it's gonna negate the other one. But it's like, no, in reality, your thinking is already compromised. It's like you're not thinking fully of the risk on the first trade, and now you're just so focused on this other trade doing well that hopefully like you know you're like you're willing to let the other trade go to damn zero because you're like, okay, well this one's going so well, like it's okay, it's going to replace it. But it's like, no, see, it's like that's why it's like your thinking is compromised. It's like you're already not focusing on the trade, you're focusing on the dollar amount now. And so that's why it's really hard. Like, dude, I see some of these guys on social media, on Twitter and shit, they're running like 7, 8 positions at once. And I'm like, I'd have a brain aneurysm, dude. Like, I don't know how they do that. That's mentally exhausting. Like, it's just it's way too exhausting on your brain. But you know, I mean, obviously everyone's different capacities. It's just, that's just insane to me though. Like, I cannot fathom doing that. Like, if like I said, if I have more than 2 trades on at once, I'm already like, oh god, like my brain's tired. Like this is a lot. So yeah, it's crazy. Um, but yeah. Any other last questions? Any plans for more of these? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll try to throw together some things here and there. I'm gonna put this on YouTube. I recorded it, so you know, I'll put it up on YouTube so you guys can review it, go over it again. Yeah, I'm just trying to again, my whole goal of Strong Trading LLC, is to showcase the reality of like what the learning curve is, being a full-time trader, and just kind of negate some of this bullshit you see on social media. It's like I never want to post a flashy car when I get it or like any, you know, any of that type of stuff. Like obviously one day I want it. And it's like, and I'm not trying to flex either. It's like I'm not even there yet. It's like, you know, like I've been trading full time 3.5 years and like I'm literally at the point where I pretty much just pay my bills and like I'm not thriving in any way, but I'm like, I'm grateful that, you know, this is my income. But, you know, like I want this to be the reality of it. And, you know, I derive a lot of my processes too, I would say from powerlifting. Powerlifting has helped me a lot because going through the mundane, you know, day to day of getting stronger, where it's like, you know, you're not maxing out every day. You're not doing super heavy shit every single day. There's some days where you kind of just like hit base hits. And it's the same thing with trading. So it's like, I'm really trying to combine more of those philosophies of just like, you know, it sounds cliche, but the more you focus on the process, it's like the more over time it's going to start making you money. It's like, I think back in my powerlifting career where like I've been powerlifting for 6, 7 years, and I've put on like 300 to 400 pounds of my total in those 6 or 7 years. And it's like, I never thought about where I am now with it. Like at like 7 years ago, it's like just day to day, I do the work and I'm like, oh shit, cool. I added 10 pounds on my bench, or like, oh my gosh, my deadlift went up 40 pounds. It's like, holy crap. So it's like, I want to use that same philosophy with trading where it's like, I do the right things over and over. I follow my rules. I follow my process. I build my edge. And then all of a sudden I look at my account and I'm like, holy shit, like we're in multi 6 figs. We're at 7 figs. Like we're doing it. Like that's the whole idea behind it, just monotonous day in and day out consistency. And like that, I think truly like that's the sweet sauce. And it's, you know, it's boring for a lot of people, but that's the reality of it. It's like everyone wants to get rich quick. No one wants to get rich slow. So it's like, that's kind of my whole goal. So yes, I will be doing more stuff like this as I think about it and whatnot. When did you decide that you no longer need to work for someone else, if you ever did? I personally had like an entrepreneurial mindset. Like right after college, I got kind of just interested in entrepreneurship, kind of wanted to do my own thing. I got a corporate job initially right out of college. And like within a year, I was like, less than a year, I was like, dude, I have to do my own thing. Like I still worked corporate for about 3 years after that, but I was always trying stuff on the side, always trying little things here and there. I tried drop shipping. I tried like creating an app company with a few people. I owned a gym for a little bit with a few business partners. Like I tried so many things on the side while working my corporate job. And then I found trading and I had enough money saved up where I was like, fuck it, I'm going all in. I don't like really have much to lose. Hindsight, I probably should have saved up a little bit more money, probably worked a little bit longer, but you know, I'm grateful for what I did. Um, realistically, like taking the jump to no longer work for someone else, it really comes down to just it's individual circumstances. It's like I said, I don't have much to lose, man. Like I don't have a girlfriend right now. I don't have, you know, like I don't have a house or a mortgage or like kids. It's like I don't got shit to lose. So it's like I went all in on me. Like I bet on myself, and like and it's also just having, I guess, this utter confidence that, you know, you're willing to put in the work, because the reality also is like you're gonna go through a lot of hard times in this shit, man. Like I've broken down in this career so many times. Like it's fucking hard. It's super hard. But you know, being able to pick yourself back up, doing it day in and day out, and like I said, you learn a lot about your mindset. You learn a lot about who you are as a person, and I'd say like trading has made me a much less aggressive person and like just angry overall. Because now it's I don't really get angry too much, like ever. It's like I noticed that actually from trading. It's like, you know, I'll have a day where it's like I lost like $2,000 or some shit, and like, yeah, I'm frustrated for a sec, but I'm like, all right, me just being pissed and ruining my whole day, whole week, whatever, it's not going to do me any good. So you learn that about yourself, and you kind of learn like to, you know, how you learn how to take control of your thinking a lot more, which I think is a really great component of it. I know that was a little sidetracked from your initial question. My girlfriend's name is Benjamin Franklin. You're damn right. Yeah. Anything else? Dude, 100% depression naps after big losses. Now I just go, and go gym. I used to do the same thing. I remember taking big losses in my first year. I'll never forget. I have a journal entry in my handwritten journal. Like I still remember it to this day. And it was a day where I lost $330 my first year. And it says, this is the worst day ever. You felt so shitty today. And now like $330 is less than my daily max loss. Like I'm like, oh, that's totally chill if I lose that much in a day on a red day. So you know, you learn over time, you just grow. And it's, yeah, the depression naps, I used to do that too, bro. Ruin my whole day. I fucking hated that. So yeah, you know, you just build and build and build. Cool. Well, I think I'll wrap it up there. It's about 45 minutes. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys joining. You know, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully, you know, it helped build some processes and whatnot. Feel free to implement these processes. You can reach out to me if you have any questions on Instagram. I always answer DMs and stuff like that. You know, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to listen to me rant and talk about, you know, my mistakes as a trader that hopefully can help you and benefit you and help you grow in the future. And yeah, thanks again. Feel free to tag me on your story. That really helps. Try to build, you know, the Strong Trading LLC. So yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate you all.